Chapter 32. A lesson. Without Quinn realizing it himself, the rest of the students weren't really paying attention to their own matches. They were all looking towards Leo and Quinn. They wanted to see how the so-called blind swordsman fought. But in the room, 3 people, in particular, were paying attention to Quinn. "Look at him, he cheats in my match and now he's getting special treatment," Brandon complained. "Didn't Leo say he didn't use any ability?" Loop asked. "Don't be a fool, of course he did, he managed to break a beast weapon, have you ever heard of that?" Brandon complained. "Maybe if he had a higher tier weapon, but all the weapons in this room are of the same tier." "Yeah, I agree," Faye added. "The weakling must have never won a fight in his life before, and then when he saw the opportunity, he just had to do it." Before the sparring match started, Quinn decided to use his inspect skill, but for the first time ever, not a single bit of information had come up. "Does this mean he's too powerful? Maybe when the skill levels up I might be able to see something," Quinn thought. Just then though, a new message from the system has appeared. "A strong opponent has appeared. Defeat the opponent for an instant level up reward." Suddenly, Quinn's blood started to rush through his body with excitement. He wasn't going to go easy on Leo in the first place, but if the match proved too easy then he was going to ease up a little to not raise suspicion. But with a reward like this, Quinn would figure out an explanation later. Every time Quinn leveled up, the EXP requirement seemed to double, making it harder and harder for him to level up. "What's wrong?" Leo asked. "Oh, nothing, sorry," Quinn said as he got into a fighting stance. "All right students, the minute starts, now," Leo shouted. In an instant, the sound of weapons clashing around the room could be heard, but the ones closer to Leo and Quinn decided to take it easy so they could watch the fight, and that included Brandon's group. As soon as the fight started, Leo dashed forward with a strike, but it wasn't at a speed Quinn couldn't handle. He blocked the first blow, knocking it away. However, straight after another attack appeared, but Quinn managed to block that as well. "A bit sloppy and rough, but your reflexes are good," Leo said. "Now let's take it up another level." Before Quinn could catch his breath, Leo attacked again with his blade, but this time even faster than the attacks before. But thanks to Quinn's agility points he was still able to keep up. Ha, I can't believe I'm actually having fun against a student," Leo said, laughing. And once again the attacks coming from Leo sped up again. This time it looked like Quinn was getting knocked around like a rag doll. All the students watching from outside thought Leo was playing with him, but Leo was truly impressed. Although Quinn looked silly, Quinn was still able to block each and every one of his attack with the gauntlets. "Now try this," Leo shouted. The attack from Leo's katana blade came from underneath. Quinn held out both his hands to block the attack, but suddenly it looked like the blade had disappeared and phased through his hands. Before Quinn knew it, the blade was right underneath his chin. Beep, beep, beep. "Oh, looks like our time is up," Leo said. "About level 14 or 13 maybe. That's pretty good for a first-year student." Quinn was in admiration for the weapons teacher. At first, he didn't have a lot of respect for the teachers at the school. They would usually just dominate over the students and tell them to toughen up and get stronger, but Quinn felt like Leo was different. Quinn could now tell that Leo was able to beat him in a fight anytime he wanted. Leo was just testing him to see how strong he was. What Quinn also learned during that fight was just getting stronger and faster wasn't good enough. He needed to learn how to fight properly. "Please, would you be able to teach me how to fight?" Quinn asked as he bowed down. "Unfortunately, the weapon you have chosen I do not specialize in myself. Although I do think it suits your fighting style, it seems like you have had some experience in hand-to-hand combat," Leo explained. "There is one thing I can suggest to you. There's a popular VR fighting game that the military students from all the other schools play. The first thing you will need to do is get experience. Although the use of abilities in the game is not prohibited, so you might have a hard time, but still, I think it will be a good experience for you. Thank you so much, Quinn said as he bowed down again. Oh, and before I forget, it was the first time I have had fun like that in a while. As a prize, feel free to keep the gauntlets. When you get better in the future, come and challenge me any time. I will be happy to fight you again, Leo said as he walked off back to the center of the weapons hall. After watching the fight, many of the students were quite disappointed. After seeing Quinn fight well against Brandon, they were hoping he would be able to do something against Leo, but to them, all it looked like was Leo toying with Quinn and throwing him around like a rag doll. Brandon then had come up with a brilliant idea and started to whisper into his friend's Faye's ear. "All right, students, it is time to get into your next pairing," Leo shouted. Just then, before Layla could get up and ask Quinn for a match, Brandon had gotten up in front of her. "Do you mind if us two have a round?" Brandon asked. Layla kissed at her teeth in scorn, but she didn't exactly have a good reason to say no. After all, it would only be a minute. Then another student, Brandon's friend Faye, had gone and approached Quinn. "Please, I would like to be your next opponent," Faye asked as he drew out his two short swords. "I don't see why not," Quinn said. Quinn didn't mind too much. So far, every new opponent he faced, as long as he defeated them, would grant him 50 EXP, and this was the best chance he had right now, in the weapons hall where people weren't allowed to use their abilities. "And please, begin," Leo shouted. Faye seemed to have some experience using the dual swords. His flow was natural and he was able to follow his attacks up well from one to the next, but after fighting with Leo, the attacks just seemed slow. Quinn was able to see the path of each strike. But just like Leo had said, the most important thing for Quinn was the experience, so rather than relying on his supernatural strength and end the fight in an instant, Quinn decided he wanted to fight a little longer. Meanwhile, in Layla and Brandon's match, Brandon didn't seem to be doing much at all. He didn't charge in and he didn't attack, all he did was avoid Layla's arrows. It was as if his mind was focused on something else. That's when a noise was heard. Faye was charging in at Quinn and did some sort of little battle cry. That was the signal for Brandon to act. Brandon then lifted his hand and at the right time, cast his wind blast right behind at Quinn's back. Quinn saw Faye's blades and was ready to block, but that's when he felt a strong force push him from behind. It knocked him off balance and at the same time, Faye's blades went right into Quinn's stomach. 10 out of 20, you bastard, Quinn groaned.